Hello and welcome to this tutorial for the board game Hacienda. The title already says what the game is about, so then we can get straight to the explanation. You are going to play until this deck of animal cards runs out. Then you take these other animal cards that you set aside during the setup and you finish the round, and then you score points. After that, you continue playing until this second deck of animal cards also runs out. Again, you finish the round and score points. Then the game is over, and whoever has the highest score wins the game. I'll explain how the scoring goes later, but again, you keep playing until there are no more animal card decks. By then, you will have had 2 scoring moments in the game. If you have the most points, you are the winner. First, what is a round? That's easy. A round is every player getting a turn. You'll know who goes last because the person who started the game will have this first player marker. Next, how do you play the game? What do you do when it's your turn? When it's your turn, you can do up to 3 actions, and you have 5 options to choose from. You can buy a card, you can play a card, you can buy a water tile, you can only do that once per turn, you can buy a hacienda, also only once per turn, or you can harvest your land to get money, again only once per turn. It's only the things that have to do with cards that you can do more than once during your turn, because you can take up to 3 actions. Let's go through those again. When it's your turn, you can choose to take a card. There is no limit to how many cards you can have in your hand. You can either pick an animal card or a land card. If you take a card from the open display, you have to pay 3 money. Immediately fill the empty spot. If you take a card from the deck, then it only costs you 2 money. It's possible that the rulebook says something different about how much you have to pay, but trust me, it's 3 money for an open card and 2 money for a card from the deck. So that's one action you can choose to do when it's your turn. Another action is using one of your cards. If you play a land card, you can place one of the land tiles in your own color on the board. You discard the card. Look in these tiles to find one that has your color on it, and then place it on the board. If you discarded a card with a meadow on it, then you have to place your tile on a meadow on the game board. If you discarded a card with a mountain, you put it on a mountain, and so on. You can place it wherever you want. There's only one type of land that has a rule. If you discarded one of these cards that show this sandy landscape, a pampa, then you have to place your tile next to one of your own tiles that is already on the board. Alright, that's using a land card. Using an animal card goes like this. Again, you discard the card, and then you can place one of your own animal tokens on the board next to one of your own land tiles. If you discarded a pig, you place a pig, and so on. And an animal is always placed on that sandy bit of land, the pampa. If you didn't place your animal next to one of these marked spaces on the game board, then that's it. But if the animal you just placed is next to a market, then you get money. You get 1 money for the animal you just placed, plus 1 money for each of your own things that is connected to this animal. So if you have a longer chain of your own animal tokens and your own land tiles, that will give you more money. They do have to be the same type of animal as well. Those were the 2 actions that you can choose to do when it's your turn. Buy a new card or play a card from your hand. And those 2 actions are the only ones that you can do more than once during your turn. The other 3 actions can only be done once per turn. you can buy one of these water tiles. It's good to have your own things on the board connected to water, because that will give you points when the scoring moment comes around. A water tile costs 12 money. Pay the money to the bank, and then you can choose which tile you want. The tile then has to be placed on an empty pampa space, the sandy land, and of course make sure it connects to as many of your own things as possible, your land tiles and your animal tokens. The action of buying a hacienda also costs 12 money. Pay it, and then take one of these little wooden buildings from the supply. Place it on one of your own tiles or tokens. A hacienda gives you 1 point for each thing that it's connected to that is exactly the same. So a long chain of your land tiles or a chain of your same animal tokens. The last thing you can choose to do during your turn is harvest. Take one of these harvest tokens for free and place them on one of your land tiles. Then you get 3 money for that, and an extra 3 money for each land tile of yours that is connected to this one. So also a chain like this. In this game it's all about making long chains of tiles and tokens of your own color. If the supply ever runs out of harvest tokens, take one that's already on the board and remove it so that you can use it, because once a chain of land tiles has a harvest token on it, you can't harvest that chain again for the rest of the game. And those were all the actions you can choose to do when it's your turn. You can do up to 3 things when it's your turn. Buy or play a card, buy a water tile, a hacienda, or harvest to get money. Now, what are you doing all of this for? What gives you points? As you may remember, you do this scoring moment when this first deck of animal cards runs out. Finish the round to make sure every player has had the same amount of turns, but you still immediately start using the second deck of animal cards. When the round is finished, you do a scoring moment, and then you start playing again. And when the second animal deck runs out, you finish the round and then score one last time. Here's what you get points for. You get 1 point for each thing you have on the board that is next to water. You get 1 point for each thing that is connected to the tile or token that you have a hacienda on, including the one it's standing on, of course. You get 1 point for each 10 money you have at that moment. But there's more. As I said, this game is about making chains. If you have at least 3 of your own land tiles in a row, you get 2 points for each tile. Not the animal tokens, only the land tiles. And the last thing you get points for is how many of these market spaces you are connected to. There's an overview in the rulebook and on the information sheet for how many points that gives you. Here it is. So again, points for being connected to markets, 2 points for each land tile if it's a part of a chain that's at least 3 tiles long, 1 point for each thing that you have that's next to water, 1 point for each 10 money you have left, and 1 point for each thing that is a part of a chain that you have a hacienda on. That's it. This is how you play Hacienda. The game has 4 different game boards and a few extra options in the rulebook to change the game, but start with the basic one, how I just explained it. I hope it was easy to follow and that you feel ready to give it a go. Thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a comment and see you for the next one.